Welcome to another episode of the Best Damn Wrestling Podcast with your two co-hosts, Keithan and Sherrod. And here's another exciting episode that is going to be continuing the Dark Side of the Ring series. Keithan,
the people love it so much. We have to keep doing it. People love it so much.
And I'm tired of saying how excited I am because I feel like it's overkill at this point, but I'm pretty.
It goes without saying.
Yeah. I think the first thing we have to do is definitely give a huge thank you to everybody who has listened to the last couple episodes of Dark Side of the Ring across all platforms. If you haven't checked it out and you check this one out, please be sure to listen to the other two that we're doing. This is episode 3 of our Dark Side of the Ring series we're covering as we review the Dark Side of the Ring series on Viceland. Man, I think this has just kind of been like a little record-setting pace for us, hasn't it?
Yeah, we're getting the most views on YouTube and the most listens on our podcast streams and stuff like that. We're getting new followers every day from this, so we're building like every freaking week, man.
Yeah, no, definitely. But again, a huge thank you to every listener, whether you liked it or you didn't like it. Thank you for listening. Continue to listen. Give us feedback. Tell us why you liked it, why you didn't dislike it. We welcome any type of conversation on social media, on our YouTube page. Be sure to leave a rating on the iTunes podcast, Google podcast, whatever you're listening to us on. Thank you for supporting us. And without further ado, let's just jump right on into the episode. We're going to do something a little bit different. We've been doing the Best Damn Wrestling News segment, and I think that today we're going to do Best Damn Wrestling News, but it won't be anything we've read. I just kind of want to run some stuff by you in particular and see what you think. One of the first things I wanted to ask you, and I've literally waited all week to cover this with you. How do you feel about seeing Shane McMahon again on SmackDown?
Oh my shit. We got to start off with getting me pissed off, huh? We got to start off with the pissed off point. If this motherfucker don't... Dude, I want him off my TV. Like, I want him to retire before The Undertaker. That's the type of shit I'm on. He need to get his ass out of the ring. Okay? The fact that Chad Gable rolled him up, I was happy. I was like, cool, I don't have to deal with him. But there's not supposed to be any authority figures. Why the fuck is he there? He serves no purpose. His storyline's been over for the past month.
How pissed off would you have been if he had won King of the Ring?
Oh, I would have been so pissed off. Because that would be 2 good gimmicks that you wasted on a non-wrestler. The best in the world, and then the King of the Ring. It's 2 good gimmicks. And you would have wasted on Shane McMahon.
It's the same thing I was saying about The Miz at one point. Kevin Owens was probably at this point white. Why do you keep saddling him with a 49-year-old man? That is not
know. They like cooled him off, man. What the hell?
Right. They got that the little people call it the little pipe bomb that he dropped about Shane McMahon and TV time and how it had an element of realism and stuff to it. That he was at his hottest, and I felt like that was the end of it all when he beat at SummerSlam, wasn't it? I believe it was SummerSlam.
Yeah, it was supposed to be.
You never saw Shane, I think, for the most part. You didn't see too much of him anymore. And out of nowhere, he comes back and he fires Kevin Owens. And at this point, the firing of Kevin Owens is now just like a running joke. I can't understand why we keep going back to this. What is the purpose here?
Yeah, I really don't get it. It's not going to make sense to me until he's off my TV. And that's legit. Like, he's more annoying than Baron Corbin right now, and that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot.
For you, that's saying a lot. Shit.
Yeah, seriously.
I don't understand. Like, what the fuck more do you want? I'm assuming you want to put the goddamn belt on. Is that it?
That was a rumor that was going around a couple months ago that they wanted him to take the belt in a way to get Roman back the belt. It was just a whole bunch of shit, but social media caught wind of it, and they pretty much stopped that shit in the tracks. So hopefully that doesn't happen.
I feel bad for Kevin Owens at this point because he's so good, and they're wasting him with this. Like it, I'm
He had something. He could have had something good going on with Elias or somebody. But what the hell?
right. I'm irritated, and I just wanted to get your take on that because it's like, how much longer can you have a active wrestler in his prime to hold his own, or to, I guess, for lack of better words, water himself down, if you will, to the degree of a 49-year-old man who has no athleticism, no real wrestling background to speak of. Lose Being beaten or humiliated or losing to the Undertaker is different. It's different. Do you
Yeah.
understand? Or losing to Ric Flair when he was in his 40s or whatever the case, that was different. Or
Right.
whatever older wrestler, Hulk Hogan. These guys were top guys and active talent and icons. Shane McMahon's claim to fame is taking leaps off of
Yeah.
high ass shit and
That's it. That's
taking
his
bumps.
finisher.
That's
He doesn't
it.
even have a
Yeah,
real
like
finisher.
right. And it's frustrating because you got so many guys that you could put with Kevin Owens that he could either make or they could help elevate him, but we're wasting him on a Shane McMahon who
Shane McFucking man.
it was cool when Shane was 20 something. It was cool when he was 30 something. Hell, it might have been cool 10 years. 5 years ago.
Yeah,
Now,
when he first got back.
right now, it's ridiculous. And it's disrespectful. I think not just to Kevin Owens, but to the talent in general. It says, hey, we don't have anybody else we could be pairing him with. Forget all the people in the back that are more deserving. Let's put Shane with him. And it's like it's never ending, and it's infuriating, and it's almost another reason why I feel like people are so excited and flocking into the AEW culture because of shit like this, you know.
Yeah. They're tired of it. You don't need Shane at all. He serves no purpose.
None. He didn't serve any purpose with the Miz.
Absolutely not. That brought the Miz down.
Yeah, yeah, he's not
That,
elevating anybody with any of this.
right. Man, it just pissed me off. It just pissed me off seeing him. I forgot he was on the show till I saw him this past Tuesday on SmackDown. I was like, what the hell? Get this man out of here.
But again, this is why people, I feel, are like they're so on fire for AEW. And speaking of AEW, segueing into my next thing, Chris Jericho, AEW champion, first one. How do you feel?
I think it's a good
Good
way to
move,
bring. Go ahead and say what you're saying.
good move, bad move. A little bit more of the same as far as fucking putting the belt on the legend for name recognition. How do you feel?
It's a good move. I think it's a good way to establish prestige. I mean, Adam Page would have been a good champion, but you want it to mean something. You want it to have value. So it's good to put it on a legend, and especially somebody like Chris Jericho, who this dude is one of the best talkers we've ever seen in the industry, and his ring work speaks for itself. He can get that title over as a heel, as a babyface, as an injured wrestler. He can get that heel over on promos alone. So I'm happy with that. I don't have any problem with that.
I don't have a problem because it's Jericho, but I kind of feel like if you wanted the show, it won't be more of the same or more of the status quo with, hey, we bring an older guy in or a legend and we put him above an up and coming talent. I kind of wanted to see Adam Page get the title. I think Jericho could have made him along the way with the match that they had, but Adam Page to me should have been your first champion if you wanted to show not the status quo. We're doing this our way, and we're gonna give people things that we think they want to see. And Jericho's not a bad pick to be your first champion,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the credentials that he has. But I felt like they spent so much time building Adam Page up to this match with the knee injury and with the being busted open and that epic promo he cut
That
with
was a
the
great
stitch fix.
promo.
Exactly. Everything seemed to line up for him to be that guy. He finally completes his chase and becomes champion because Jericho had been beating the shit out of him basically for the last couple months.
Yeah.
Common sense would have dictated, hey, listen, let's put the belt on him. But at the same time, I could kind of see the equation. Okay, we're about to start TV in 30, 45, 50 days. Jericho's a name, a household name that people recognize, as opposed to an Adam Page. And, you know, for all the points you laid out, this is why we should make him champion. But I felt like you could have got the same push if you made Page champion and had Jericho chase again.
I agree with
And
that. I was cool with it either way.
yeah, I was too, but
Yeah,
I
you
just
could
was
go
so
either way with that.
because that's the problem with so many wrestling promotions today. It seems like they keep bringing back guys that are over or
Mm-hmm.
that were, you know, if you look at Impact's bringing in Ken Shamrock for Bound for Glory. You know, Ken
They
Shamrock's
are?
50 something. Yeah, he signed on to do a match, I think, for the
Oh
title in
my
Impact.
God. And he's like in his 50s. What the?
Yeah, like exactly. It's Ken Shamrock in his 50s. Like it's not the same thing as the
The
Attitude
fuck? They
Era.
just got a
Not saying
good
that he
TV
wasn't,
deal.
but
What the hell?
right. It's okay, and then you go to if you even New Japan for all of the good things that they do, they still every now and again rely on older guys, Tanahashi or somebody like that. To me, at least. I mean, I know people will say, "Oh, you fucking nuts," but Tanahashi's been around a long fucking
Yeah,
time.
hell, Taka
So
Michinoku's still around too.
right, so you and WWE is super guilty of this. The
Oh my
Undertaker
God, hell yeah.
goes away. They fucking had Goldberg at SummerSlam beating the fuck out of Dolph Ziggler. Or Stone Cold Steve Austin was just on Raw. You can't get away from you can't get people to see all the new talent you have to offer and all of these guys that are working hard in their primes today if you constantly bringing back the guys of old. And I
Yeah,
feel like Jericho, to a certain degree, even though he's not that old, is a guy of old. He does good to make a guy, but he probably shouldn't be the main guy right now. But I get why they're doing it because they need a name, and I get that you need a name to to put the flagship on or to hang the flag on. But you could have got that same thing out of Adam Page because people could, if you had Jericho chasing, hey, this is the guy that beat Chris Jericho. If you write it right, it makes perfect fucking sense.
yeah, but you know what? I'm thinking that they want to. They, I mean, the feud definitely isn't over, in my opinion, because I mean that's the only feud they have going in the company right now, besides Cody and Shawn Spears. That's the only feud. I don't really see anybody else with a substantial feud,
But
so maybe they want to build Adam
supposedly,
Page up.
supposedly Jericho and Cody are supposed to go at it next for the title. Um, I mean, I'm
Uh, yeah, I wouldn't do that if I was Cody.
well, it's based off a win-loss record. Remember, they take that shit very seriously. So, I'm as far as I'm aware, he has the best record because clearly it's not Omega right now. I feel like they may be doing something with him to push him later. But he's lost almost every match he's wrestled so far. So,
Yeah, every match actually.
but no, he
AEW.
won. He beat. I think he beat SEMA.
Did he? Oh, at Fighter Fest. Yeah,
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 but yeah. We'll see. But those were the only two things I had for the best damn wrestling news segment. Again, AEW, as we know, like I said, will be on TV in probably less than 45 days, and we'll kind of see where they go from there on a weekly basis. as far as
Yep.
Jericho champion. But
NXT starts next week on USA.
yeah, yeah, and that's gonna be interesting to see too when it's live and not taped, and that's a little bit different for
Hmm.
developmental talent. But I guess we'll see. So. But without further ado, let's get to what we came here for. This will be the third installment of our Dark Side of the Ring series, and we're covering the Fabulous Moolah episode. Again, it was on Viceland. You can find it on YouTube. Dark Side of the Ring. And basically, this episode was about would you say the career of the Fabulous Moolah, or did it seem like they kind of were pushing on kind of just the notorious reputation she had?
It was more about the. It started off about the career, but it ended with the reputation. There's the whole thing that kind of brought it up was the whole thing with Wrestlemania, the women's battle royal being called the Moolah Memorial Battle Royal, and then
Yeah,
switching the name because of the controversy. So
right.
yeah, it was more about the reputation and allegations and stuff.
So, I mean, what did you think, man? What stuck out to you on this one? I gotta be honest. Out of all of them, this one was kind of like, to me a little bit. I loved it because I loved all of them compared
Right.
to the Bruiser Brody murder, or the Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth episode, or the Montreal Screwjob. This one kind of was like, man, it was a lot of nuggets of information in there that I was like, wow, I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but it didn't really grab me at first. I had to really sit there and pay attention to it for it to be, to make sense.
Yeah. Well, it's weird because you don't know who to believe, you don't know what to believe because it's like different conflicting reports. I mean, it's kind of like even playing field. On Moolah's side, defending her, you have the guy who's the head of the Fight for Moolah organization. Then you have Moolah's daughter. Then you have Selena, one of the Moolah's students, Selena. Then on the other side, you got Wendy Richter, Princess
Who hates her, by
Victoria.
the way.
Oh yeah, who hates her? Then Sweet Georgia Brown's children.
Children. Yeah.
Even though the son
Well, let
wasn't
me
as
let,
hard
let's
on
give
Moolah.
let's set the table for this real quick and give a bit of a backstory. So, for those of you who don't know, when they were going to lay out the Fabulous Moolah Battle Royal Memorial, I think I said that right. Um,
Yeah.
there was a lot of backlash from that because basically allegations came out that Moolah, for lack of better words, was kind of extorting the female talent and using them and in
Pimping them out and
inappropriate.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I was trying to avoid using that word, but
Well,
okay, yeah.
you got to call it pimping when it's pimping. You got to
Well,
recognize it's
well,
pimping.
yeah, but shit, you don't want to. Oh fuck. What the hell?
If
We ain't
she an
got to keep
old school
talking.
player, she an old school player. It wasn't really all her, maybe. Who knows?
I'm trying to do a show here. You,
I'm doing the show
these
with you, but I'm just saying if it's pimping, just respect the pimping.
Okay, so yeah, basically, there were a lot of allegations floating around about how she treated not just extorting them sexually, but also a lot of physical abuse and things like that. And you heard a lot of the
Hmm.
stories in this documentary,
Financial
but
stuff and
right,
deep
exactly,
yeah.
even the finances. So that kind of sets the table for this whole ordeal because they start to show off by mentioning, all of these allegations and things that were thrown around, and then they kind of go into you know, talking about Moolah. Now, from what I understand, at one time she was for decades the top women's wrestler
Yeah, she was women's
in the
wrestling.
yeah, literally she in the you probably in the world. Hell, I've been
Yeah.
trying to decide what to say, but you know at that time, I guess we've grown so accustomed to seeing women wrestlers, even in the divas and all of that shit, that
Yeah.
it's the norm. But back then, that was not customary. It was kind of a premium to see that. It was more of an attraction. And she kind of cornered the market, for lack of better words, with her look and her promos and being a heel and everything about her. And at one point, she was the elite woman wrestler in the world.
Yeah.
And so I know you were talking about this because we couldn't believe it. She ends up holding the world title for like, what was it, 20 years?
She didn't lose a match for like 20 years, I believe.
How insane! And if you go back, you'll hear a lot of older stories about guys like Bruno San Martino and these guys didn't lose matches like for years. They were champion. Bob Backlund, these guys
Yeah.
were champions for time. Put that in perspective, like 20 years of not losing.
Right. I mean, to me, that is different times too, because back then, if you're the biggest star, you can have your way. You have a lot of pull in the back with the bookers. In some cases,
Right.
she was the booker too.
Right, and so after she gets out of wrestling full time, it seems she gets so good, she becomes so influential. Some kind of way, she basically sets up a women's wrestling school,
Hmm.
and she basically books the women wrestlers she trains out to other promotions, and
Right.
that's kind of where the story really picks up or whatnot, because her and her husband, Buddy Lee, go out and find different women and stuff and bring them in, and they train them and then they send them out. Now, the thing I thought that was interesting was she would send these girls out, but she got like a substantial kickback apparently
Right.
from like it was like 25%. Can you
Yeah, but
imagine?
that's just based off of what they knew because they didn't really know the real rate. She told them a rate that they were getting paid, but they didn't really
Right.
know the full rate because she negotiated the price of the booking, and basically would keep a lot of it and give them a little bit. So yeah, she had a good kickback.
But I mean, for that time, what she was doing was crazy, and promoters actually worked with her, like, and that was unheard of at that time period, or whatnot. But she trained these girls, she sent them out, they wrestled. Well, she ends up coming up on a lady by the name of Sweet Georgia Brown. She's the first African American women's wrestler in South Carolina, and she's really good.
Hmm.
Well, what ends up happening is she gets so good that this is when a lot of the allegations and stuff start.
Right.
Apparently there was, according to her children, at least there was a time where Sweet Georgia Brown was almost to a degree, from what we seen in the episode, controlled by Buddy Lee. And
Yeah,
I don't know.
it was bad.
Right. Like, they talk in the episode about how she came to see the kids and they were only there a few minutes and he basically dragged her back to the car and put her in it and they had to go. And didn't you find it interesting how there was speculation at one point because she, like, daughter was like, I always wanted to know who my father was, and Moolah shows him the picture of Buddy Lee and her and was like, that's your father, and allegedly he was sleeping with the women's wrestlers, particularly Sweet Georgia Brown, which made it. They kind of hinted around it or stated that her children were actually her children and Moolah's husband's children.
Yeah,
That was
Buddy Lee
her
was the father. The son looks just like him, really. When you look at him, he kind of looks just like him. And they said that Georgia Brown was his favorite to have relations with. I
well,
got to
not
keep it.
well, not
That's
just that.
crazy.
You remember they were saying that when Moolah eventually catches him sleeping with the women's wrestlers that she was training, she put, and according to them, Sweet Georgia Brown left with him.
Yeah, they split up, and some went with Moolah and some with Buddy Lee. And it's crazy because even the kids, they were like, it's almost like every time my mom came back from the long trip on the road, she would be
She had
pregnant.
it, yeah, and
Yeah.
that was. I mean, and they said at one point she was the number four rated women's wrestler in the world. She could have been champion, but did you notice they also hinted at that as as good as she got, Moolah kind of started to cut her down a little bit, and that becomes a
Hmm.
pattern. It seems like in this
Yeah,
episode where every
it
time somebody
does.
got bigger or could have been bigger, she found a way to get over.
Yeah, in some kind of
So
way.
right, and I mean they ended up with I think other than Sweet Georgia Brown, the only other instance of somebody being bigger than her was Wendy Richter in the 80s.
Yeah.
How that all came about. And she had the whole thing with Cyndi Lauper and girls just want to have fun. And she became the WWF's answer to Hulk Hogan, that like the female version at
Right.
least. And I didn't know that. So watching that, I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
I didn't
so
know
this,
that either. That threw me off.
yeah.
I was like,
I
oh,
was
really?
like, and I had heard about Wendy Richter before in passing, but I had never really paid
Right.
her any attention because this is before we were born. But when they
Yeah.
showed it, I was like, man, this really is kind of like the female version of Hulk Hogan. Wendy Richter was huge. She was on MTV. She was
Yeah, she
on
was everywhere on the Tonight
right
Show.
videos, and this was unheard of. Moolah didn't have this type of appeal. Even as good as
Right.
she was, she wasn't. And so Wendy Richter ends up getting so big that they have the Wendy Richter versus Fabulous Moolah match at WrestleMania. Well, did you find it interesting how they said that Vince had to write the right amount of zeros on a check to get Moolah to actually drop the belt?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, see, that's the whole reason why she kept that winning streak for a long time. I mean, as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, well, she didn't want to lose. Like, I'm the
But she
biggest
took
female star.
it super serious. Like that was a big deal to her.
Right. As a matter of fact, I don't even think Moolah negotiated Wendy Richter's deal with Vince McMahon to get her there. I think Wendy had started taking bookings or found a little bit of separation.
Well, she
And
said that she told him that she wanted her control of her own money and she wanted to see everything from her own self. She didn't want Moolah speaking for her. So that was already like unforgivable
right,
sin number. Because
yeah, in
remember,
the eyes of
she
Moolah,
was
yeah,
trained. Yeah, she was trained by Moolah. Whatever. So that was already the first thing. The second thing was how big she got. As far as the publicity and did you? I found it interesting how even in the clips they showed of Wendy Richter and Lou Albano and Cyndi Lauper and Moolah just kind of seemed to pale in comparison. She wasn't as charismatic in that particular instance as say Wendy Richter. Wendy Richter was kind of like the modern age woman. She was,
yeah, in
audacious
her
and
20s,
right
and Moolah was in her
vibrant
60s.
and right, and Mullah's in her 60s exactly, and you like, okay, like this looks totally different,
Right,
and it wasn't the same thing. And she ends up beating her at WrestleMania and becomes the champion. And she was so over. And if you remember in the episode, one of the girls said Wendy Richter was well on her way to literally being as big as Hulk Hogan. She could have been that big in the late 80s.
yeah,
Well, somewhere along the way in the episode, they talk about Wendy Richter started saying that she wanted to be paid the same as men. And I don't know if this is an attack on the WWF and Vince McMahon or if this was just her personal opinion in the episode. But there seems to be a undertone of she was penalized for speaking out about the pay
yeah,
structure. Yeah, I mean, I gotta kind of ask: do you feel like that happens today?
yeah, yeah. I think so. I think a little bit of a sabotage goes on in some kind of way with women wrestlers. Well, really, wrestlers in general. I mean, if they're getting too hot, they're gonna cool them the hell off. Like if they have a certain woman that they want in a position at that top spot, they're gonna put her up there and they're gonna do everything they can to try to bury the other woman. I mean, goddamn, look what happened with Asuka in WWE right now. She was hotter than every woman on the roster.
Well, not just that. Let's put it in this perspective. And I know we're getting off topic a little bit, but Becky Lynch was hotter than anybody
Hmm.
from November to April. And now she's on a video game cover. I think she's the first female to do that in
Yep,
wrestling. You
she is.
know, and she's still over. But do you think, and obviously we don't know because we're not there, but do you think that she's having the same commentary and questions and things as far as, hey, I should be paid like a top guy or whatnot? I'm drawing money. I'm drawing people to seats. I'm selling merchandise. That's what I'm saying. Like, from that perspective, hey, I'm a draw. Pay me like the draw I am.
Yeah. With that, it seemed like she's been paid uh a good amount because I think she just renegotiated a deal not too long ago.
Right.
So I think she's found a comfortable spot with that. I think it's more of her proving herself to, other women who think that they're better than her, that they deserve a spot more than her. You
Well,
know,
and I just found it interesting because I felt like that what Wendy Richter was talking about might still be a subject of contention today. You know, because when you look at women like Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair and Tessa Blanchard, and
hmm
it's several. I wonder, do they still have these same issues? Hey, I'm a draw. I'm probably a better draw than most men. Pay me like it. Or is
Oh,
it
that's definitely happening with a lot of female wrestlers, especially on the independent scene. Especially on the independent
right?
scene.
So yeah, I found it interesting that they said that they felt like she was penalized for mentioning that and wanting more money. And the penalty actually kind of ties into our very first Dark Side of the Ring episode. This was a this was the first double cross that was done on WWF TV. What
Right?
between Wendy
Still controversial too.
Richter, right? And between Wendy Richter and fucking Fabulous Moolah, who was dressed up as the Spider Lady. So supposedly, according to the documentary, Wendy Richter was supposed to wrestle the Spider Lady that night. She
Yeah.
said she had seen Moolah once, but she never saw her again, and she didn't think anything of it. But when she went out to wrestle the Spider Lady, she said that she had she noticed that there was a difference in the moves and things like that. But let's
Yeah,
just
her physique, her
let
body
right.
type.
But let's just go back to before that. Remember, after she won the title, they did a lot of matches between her and Moolah. She accused Moolah of trying to purposely hurt her. Remember, she said that she was cinching, like she put the Boston Crab in and sat all the way down and kind of fucked
And
up her
leaned
back.
all the way back. Yeah,
Yeah,
she fucked up her
like
back.
stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, she was like she had been constantly putting up with that, but she was over. It was like she's the champion. It is what it is. But when she wrestles the Spider Lady tonight, to your point, she notices there are a lot of different things. Well, what ends up happening as a finish, the Spider Lady cinches her up in a small package. Now, if you remember, if you've seen the episode Dark Side of the Ring for Montreal, Jim Cornette talks about how he and Vince Russo sat around and discussed a double cross on Bret Hart with Shawn Michaels, and one of
Hmm.
Vince's suggestions was, "Oh, we should cinch him up on a small package." That's where they got that from. And if you remember, Cornette told him, "No, don't do that because if you cinch Bret Hart up on a small package, he'll kick out at two and beat the fuck out of Shawn Michaels on national television." So they had to
Hmm.
come up with a different double cross. Well, in this particular case, they used the small package. And the referee fast counted to three. Wendy Richter lost the title, and then off comes the mask and it's moved.
Right.
Now, I gotta ask you something.
Oh,
Did you
please
see the
do.
part? Huh?
Yeah, please do.
Did you see the part where after the match when Moolah pulls the mask off, Wendy Richter really goes after her.
I saw that. I did. But it's kind of confusing to me because the punches
If
she
it
was
was a work
throwing,
or not.
it looked like it's a worked punch. And then it's like, how can you tell that's not? How can you not tell that's Moolah? I mean, only an old woman is built like that.
Well, I said that too when she's like she knew something was off. I was like, nothing ever gave you the indication at any point in time that was Moolah, like at all.
Yeah, and you remember in the documentary they had like audio of the crowd chanting Moolah, like pointing to her, and they knew it was Moolah.
Right.
It just seems different. I don't know. That don't seem right because she said that she worked the Spider Lady for
Before,
uh
yeah.
yeah before on the road, and that she knew that she was built differently, but she didn't think it was Moolah. But I don't know, man. It's you I don't know. It just looked like a worked punch when she threw it. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, this was before shoots to a certain
Right.
degree, like or whatnot. You didn't see a lot of that. I mean, yeah, you had the occasional thing go Ari, but most of the time it was pretty by the book, So that could have been a work, but I just found that part interesting. And Wendy Richter, of course, kind of goes through the same thing as Bret Hart after the screw job, and goes looking for Vince. She says she never sees him, and then she kind of just leaves the business because of Moolah. After that, she was so hot, and just that quick, she gave it up, or whatnot because of that. She just that just soured her on wrestling. You never heard from her again, or whatnot.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of a funny part in the episode when she was talking about it. She's like, the bitch is dead, like she still to this day hates her for that.
Right.
She felt like she took something from her. And I mean, she wasn't just the only one. I can't for the life of me remember the lady's name. I wish I could. And God knows if I go back and watch this, because I've seen it like twice already, I'll know her name as soon as I see it. But remember, there's another incident that they discussed after the Wendy Richter thing with one of the students that were there. And she talked about how she was, Moolah used to push competition in the house, whatnot, and how for Christmas she gave her that brown outfit, the expensive sequin outfit or whatnot to wear in her matches.
Oh, that was Princess Victoria, the one that was pissed off the whole interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, Princess Victoria. Yeah.
Well, so she gets to talking about how the viciousness of the training and how Moolah kind of just they were the house was vicious, and how they puked all the time, and like they were expected to come up with the money even when they didn't wrestle. And the example she gave was she was in a match and something went wrong and she breaks her neck. And I thought it was kind of horrific how she was saying that the day after she breaks her, Moolah told her she wanted her to come out and run her or something like that.
Take a bump.
Like, yeah, right, take a bump. And she had a broken fucking neck. She's like, every time that she took a bump, she would just fucking cry because she was in agony. And I'm like, how the fuck are you taking a bump with a broken fucking neck? And so after she did that, she couldn't wrestle for a while. She talked about how Moolah told her, hey, there's a guy, he wants you to come up, show him a good time, and he'll pay you money. And so she goes up there, and she was like, the guy basically, for lack of better words, was trying to sleep with her, and she threatened to break his arm, and she left. And so she said when she got back, Moolah was pissed with her because she did that, and she basically at the end of all of this told her, listen, you can't wrestle, you obviously won't do a job like that. You have no way to pay me, give me back my outfit, and get out. Like, she had to leave. And I found it interesting because it's like you heard this story throughout the episode of people saying, "Oh, we were told to do this." Just like, I don't know if you remember, they were like that. She knew that to a degree. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that some of the women wrestlers were sleeping with Buddy Lee.
Right.
So
Yeah. It's like,
and,
what knowledge did you have?
and I have to feel like from the way people are explaining this and how strict she was on them and how she kind of kept them under her thumb, how much did you not know? Does that make sense?
Right. Because, I mean, she's not completely squeaky clean in this. I mean, in order to pull off a screw job, you gotta be somewhat of a fucked up person in the mind. You know, because
Right.
that's a fucked up thing to do. But, I mean, if your husband is doing that, you fucking know. No matter if she probably just wanted to stay for a while so she can make sure she was good enough to the point where she could break off on her own to be all right. Maybe financially. Maybe she needed to make the type of connections that she needed to before she can separate. You know, who knows? But I do
Right.
believe she had some knowledge.
And all of this is speculative. I mean, this is allegedly. We can't say because we weren't there, and we getting kind of different opinions. But from the way people describe it, the one thing everybody agrees on is she kind of kept them. She was always at the head of everything, as far as like in control of the women and how much they paid and how much they were booked
Mm-hmm.
for the matches. So she kind of micromanaged them. So it kind of leads me to believe, did you know? I mean, is it a possibility that maybe you did? That's the whole point I was trying to get to throughout the course of the episode. You know, and you hear so many of these stories and stuff. And I think it was just amazing that she went from the first women's wrestler to booking women. At one point, Moolah was the only way you were going to get a job. You had to go through her to get booked because
Yeah.
promoters weren't dealing directly with women back then.
Yeah. They weren't at all. They didn't even really believe in any women. That's why Moolah, I mean, if you remember, Princess Victoria, she said before she went to Moolah, she was wrestling with someone, and he said the only way I can get you booked now is through Moolah, because all the
Yeah,
women, female wrestlers had to go through her.
she monopolized the booking of women.
Yeah,
It's amazing considering that time period and what she did, and I think it's equally as amazing for how long she did this. And Vince always, from what we seen in the documentary, it's like Vince always went back to her when he was in a pinch. She
right.
was she was who he depended on or whatnot. And I think that when he started pushing Wendy Richter, that she felt threatened, that was going to take away something from her. And that's
Right.
probably what did you or did you not find it interesting? They never said whether or not Vince McMahon was in on the double cross.
Yeah, I felt it was interesting, but at the same time, I kind of feel like they implied it. You know what I'm saying, by
Yeah,
implicating
to a
him
degree.
so
Yeah.
much. You know,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, yeah. And then we already know his mo, so he's like, nothing goes down in Vince McMahon's ring that he doesn't know about.
Right.
You know,
So
because I
I,
mean, and then not only that, for the match, it was like Moolah was barely selling for Wendy. It was a terrible ass match. It
yeah.
was it was a horrible looking match. It was like no selling from her. It was just, I don't know. It just looked like a work at the end though. But yeah,
But
yeah, it
to
was just
think you had somebody that was as oh, and I gotta kind of agree with Victoria. Like she said that what happened to Wendy Richter may have pushed women's wrestling back 20 years
yeah,
because after the 80s, it was a good while. I don't think we started seeing like women wrestlers again to the extent that we see them now, or then until like what 96, 97, and even then all you really had to my knowledge was Medusa, Sable,
Luna
uh,
Vachon,
Luna Vachon, Sunny, and
uh,
Sunny and Sable ballets. They weren't
yeah, and
necessarily
Terry Runnels. She was of LA too.
Terry Runnels was a valet. But yeah,
Yeah.
they weren't really wrestlers, and then you
Yeah.
kind of went from that into um the divas, and you saw a lot of wet t-shirt spots and
Yeah, a
sweater.
lot of
So
puppies, a
right,
lot
they
of
didn't
bra and
really do a lot
panties
of wrestling
matches.
in the late '90s. I don't think wrestling really picked up for women again until Trish Stratus and Lita kind of led the charge on, hey, we can really do more than
Yeah.
show. You know, they were the pioneers of that, and I think
Yeah.
to a degree, you have to give oh God, what is her name? Help me. She was in Glow. Oh God, I can't. Oh, I'm ashamed of
Oh,
myself.
Awesome Kong.
No, 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 not the show. The actual Glow. She was in Right to Censor. What the fuck?
Oh, Ivory.
Ivory. Oh God, yes. You have to give Ivory some credit because she was also another one that
Yeah.
really
Ivory, Molly Holly, Jacqueline.
Jacqueline.
They were real
Yeah,
wrestlers.
yeah, they were real wrestlers, and then of course you ushered in a new era. AJ Lee, uh, 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 Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Bailey, Sasha Banks. The list goes on and on now, but I mean, it started here with Moolah, and she was on top. And then not only was she on top, she ended up becoming the centralized figure for women's wrestling and booking and getting paid. And she made a shit ton of money off of these women. And to I don't know if that's good or bad because depending on who you ask, some students actually said, "Hey, I never would have gotten this business. I wouldn't have been as successful as I was if it wasn't for her." But on the other side of that coin, you had people saying she was not what everybody thought she was. But I thought it was just an interesting commentary on her life and after she died, how some people want to memorialize her because of what she did for women's wrestling, and some people feel like that she was kind of to the degree a predator. Is that or she preyed on women that were trying to get into the business? Is what I mean. Is that a safe assumption?
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I, again, I like this one because it was something that I had never read. I didn't know the story of Moolah like that until I watched
Yeah, me
this.
neither. I didn't know any of that was going on until the controversy started happening. Then Dark Side of the Ring gave full details. So I was like, oh shit, really?
Right. So, I mean, only thing that we probably knew her for was being Fabulous Moolah in the Attitude Era. But it's so much more to her than this. And you got a chance to really see that and pull the curtain back. And I like how the show left you to make your own interpretation of her. They didn't victimize her, but they didn't also they didn't try to make her to be a bad person, but they also didn't idolize her. It's up to you to decide what you want to see from her based on what they gave you.
Right.
They did a good job of mixing good and bad because even her daughter or whatnot tried to she was all I had. I loved her, this and that and the third. But then at the same time, there were other people saying, she did these things. So you have to choose what side you want. And I thought they did a very good job of leaving that up to the viewer to interpret. But overall, what did you think of the episode?
I think it was good. Uh, it was definitely one of the ones that I had to just sit there and watch and be real into, pay close attention to, because there was just so much information in that little 40-minute documentary just off of Moolah, and I was just like, wow. It was just you didn't know which way to lean, so you just had to kind of take it for what it was. Just
Right.
appreciate the story because it was
And
just
that, and
like
that
you don't know.
that's kind of where I was after a while. I was like, okay, I don't like it. I don't dislike it. I'm just appreciating being told the story I didn't know,
Right.
and at the end of it all, I was like, well, I see her contribution to professional wrestling and more importantly to women's wrestling, but I also understand how some of these women felt or
Yeah,
what,
she kind of stuck around too long too. If you kind of
right,
ask me,
when
stuck
to
around
let
too long.
go.
She couldn't let it go.
And how can we miss you if you won't go away?
Right.
And yeah, so I loved it too. Dark Side of the Ring hasn't done a bad episode. I thought that this was pretty good. good. It was super informative. Anytime I can watch something that I don't know a whole lot about, I think it works, tremendously. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think you haven't seen it. It's something you should watch. It gives you a bigger perspective on who Moolah really was and what she meant to the wrestling, to women's wrestling in general. A lot of these women talk about in the episode how that was their idol. That was the first person that got them into wanting to do it. So I think it's worth watching, and just like anything else that's on the Viceland series. And I mean, man, I think that'll wrap it up. Well, any final thoughts before we get off?
Any final thoughts? Watch the episode. Follow, subscribe when you watch the episode, please.
Definitely.
Turn on the post notifications. Hit us up, letting us know that you subscribe, and we will give you a shout out on Twitter. Send us the screenshot, letting us know that you subscribed and hit the notification bell. Greatly appreciate it. Keep the feedback coming. We do conversate with you on Twitter if you have a view on it. And even if you drop a comment under the video, we answer back to the comments there. We'll have a full conversation with you. We don't care what kind of view you have. We'll talk to you.
Right. We just want to talk wrestling. It doesn't matter. It's not for us to all agree or disagree, but the conversation is healthy, and if enough of us are talking about it, it's keeping it alive, and that's what's important to us. That's why we do what we do. So again, I hope you enjoyed this. We will be bringing you more content. We got a few more episodes.
Yeah,
that
three more, I think, right?
Yeah.
3 more left?
Yeah. 2 or 3 more. Yeah. And we'll be bringing you more of that. And hopefully you guys like this one as much as you like the last 2. If you did, tell us why. Like he said, if you didn't, tell us why. I mean, Ethan and I welcome all feedback, respectful, feedback at least. And again, we thank you for listening, and continue to keep supporting us. And without further ado, this has been another great episode in our Dark Side of the Ring series on the Best Damn Wrestling Podcast, and we look forward to catching you next time.